Hey y'all, welcome back to Twin Oaks Family Farm in rural Southeast Ohio, USA. Thanks for joining us on our YouTube channel, Twin Oaks Farm Poultry. This is our meat bird production barn, and we are recording on June 26, 2024. We're going to upload this on June 26, 2024. We've been sharing footage of this flock in particular. This is about our third flock of 2024 calendar year, but this is our biggest flock ever at our small family-run independent poultry operation here in rural Southeast Ohio, USA. And we have been about a week behind real time on our uploads with this flock. So we're going to kind of close that gap today. I get a little bit mixed up going between dates if I'm trying to keep track of production stats in real time for our farm records, and then also trying to go back, like to different production points when we document and describe uploads. So I'm running into a little bit of struggle bus doing that. So just gonna kind of oh, there was a phrase I had in my mind. I can't come up with it now, but just gonna kind of cut the losses on the gap between the last time we would have uploaded on these and current time. But I think they were probably maybe only about 9 days old in the most recent upload that we would have had on them. But now we're at day 15 for this flock's production. So just want to show you the flock, tell you what we do in our small poultry operation, and invite you to continue to join us on our YouTube channel, Twin Oaks Farm Poultry. We love to use this platform, this medium, to let people get a real life look at making chicken. And so, in our opinion, in the media, chicken production, poultry production in general, the food production that comes from raising poultry kind of gets a bad rap, and there's a lot of media right now putting a bad spin on poultry production. We see a lot of instances where huge poultry houses that are part of corporate run operations actually are forced to destroy birds, are forced to burn buildings down, are forced to curtail operations for a variety of reasons. But that's coming from basically government force. So it kind of puts a negative, bad spin on the entire poultry industry, on the entire process of what we're trying to do when we're raising especially meat birds, but also egg production birds. So we are like the extreme polar opposite of that situation. We are a family of 5 that is just a regular household. We've generally been a single income household for about 2 decades. Our lives have always included farming. My husband's family has a family farm that doesn't have to support any households, but does support itself and is its own entity and is, financially solvent that way. So that's basically our model with the poultry operation as well. It does not have to support any households, but it does need to support itself. The hope is that it clears some kind of small profit margin that gives us a little bit of a feeling of a reward for doing this. This is a special kind of crazy, and we recognize that. I guess we're a special kind of crazy to raise these kind of chickens and invest the time in it that we do and put the work in it that we do for the very little bit of return you get on it. But as far as the farm operation itself, we do expect it to take care of itself. There's quite a bit of overhead with a little poultry operation, probably more overhead than most people would expect. Some examples: I've got feed sitting here beside me. I've got what we call skids of it, 2 skids of it. So 40 bags on a skid, each bag 50 pounds. That's hundreds of dollars. That's over $1,000 sitting there, 2 skids of feed. the feeders and waters that we utilize for the birds. We've got some feeders and waters on order. We were actually going to try to make do with the feeders and waters basically that you see in the pen now. We have some more bigger feeders and waters. We were basically going to try to make do with what we have of the big feeders and waters and continue to include the small feeders and waters to supplement. But what we find is that the capacity of the small feeders and waters is small enough that as the birds grow, even with putting so many of them in here and having multiples, they eat through and drink through that capacity so quickly that it becomes very time consuming to keep all those filled up for them. And the other thing we find about them is that they take up so much floor space. And actually, as our birds grow, they need the floor space for them. So what we decided to do was go ahead and put on order a lot more waters and feeders. I might be getting my numbers backwards, but I think we said 12 more feeders, just like the metal ones, and 8 more waters, just like the top fill, easy fill waters that these birds are using right here. So getting new supplies. So for a little flock of 400 plus, to get those supplies that I just mentioned for them, almost $900. So, you know, a lot of overhead. Another example I'll give you on the overhead to raise like a group of chickens like this. These crates. So these yellow golden colored crates on the wall there, and we have a few sitting there against a wall to block a gap at that doorway and to let the fan sit up on. There's enough crates there to hold about half of our flock at the end of production. For us to get more of those crates would be a little over $1,000 to get the additional crates that we would need to hold our entire flock when we're at the end of production. And we need those crates, and they're a great asset to us because we take our finished birds to a USDA inspected processor that is about an hour and a half away from our home place here. So when we go to move those birds, there are other ways to do it. There are alternatives, but the easiest way for us to do it, and really the least stressful way for the birds to do it, is to put them into those crates. Those are the tops that we're looking at. They would sit flat on the floor and we would load the birds in there. It's supposed to hold about 8. Might hold 9 or 10 depending on the size of the finished birds. And these are birds for meat production, if I haven't made that clear already. So they will be butchered at the end of 5 or 6 weeks as humanely as possible and processed into wholesome and delicious poultry. Real food, real chicken, real good chicken. So real food, not food filled with additives, preservatives, not food that's a food-like product, actual real food. That's what we're making here. And this is how you do it. But as I said, there's quite a bit of overhead with it. So again, making that point on the crates, to get the additional crates that we would need to accommodate this number of birds at the end of production would be at least another $1,000. We come up with about $1,300 it would take to get the rest of the crates that we would really like to have. But just like now, you know, it's just like a household budget. It's just like running a company, like its budget. You know, sometimes there's X amount of money and you've got X amount of needs, but the money doesn't go for all the needs, so you got to prioritize and make choices. So were we going to give our birds more of these waters and feeders to give them better quality of life every day, or were we going to opt for more of these to give ourselves more convenience? Well, in the end, then, if that's the choice, there's no choice. The answer is clear. We have to opt for what gives the birds better quality of life every day that they're in production, right? So we have to go with investing in the waters and feeders if we are forced to pick between the two. So want to show you one of the birds in the flock that is healthy and normal, but I want to show this to you. This bird is resting, and these birds, they do rest a lot. Cornish Rock Cross meat chickens, y'all, the work of their lifetime is to become wholesome and delicious, nourishing food for human consumption, okay? And they have to grow a lot and they grow a lot, in a short amount of time. And everybody knows that growth requires support, and one of the supports that growth requires is rest. So one of our goals is to provide our birds with enough water to hydrate them. One of our goals is to provide our birds with enough food to nourish them and support their growth. And one of our goals is to provide them with a comfortable place to live that supports their need for sufficient rest. We also want to provide them with enough room, enough space, and appropriate stocking density, meaning number of birds in the amount of space. We want to provide them with enough space that they also can exercise, because they do need to exercise, and they will. And one of the things I had on my mind, don't know if I got it said, was our Cornish Rock Cross meat birds often get accused of being lazy, but they're not lazy. I showed you the one resting, which has already gotten up and moved, because they need rest to grow, to accomplish what they're being raised for, which is wholesome and delicious food. And they're really not lazy, but it's like any of us. If I tell all y'all, okay, the group project today is, why don't all y'all go dig a ditch, and I'm going to give you two options. I'm going to give you a pile of shovels, or I'm going to give you a backhoe. Well, okay, which one are you going to use? Y'all are going to talk amongst each other, and you're going to say, hey, we got any equipment operators here? Because if we can use that backhoe, that's a heck of a lot easier than using these shovels, right? So, now granted, I know there are folks in the world that standing on the bank of a river, given the option to use a boat or swim, will choose to swim. But most of us in our right minds, told to dig a ditch, we're going to opt for the least exertion possible. We're not going to use the shovels if we got a backhoe and an operator, right? So these birds are the same way. If we're going to make food and water easy to get to, which we do want to do, because we never want them to struggle for getting the water, we never want them to struggle for getting the food, we're going to make it easy to get to. But when we make it easy to get to, okay, like this bird here, these birds right here, when they decide they're hungry, are they going to choose to walk 2 rows of feeders over there to get food, or are they going to choose just to get it right there? Well, obviously, they're just going to choose to get it right there, right? So what we do, and as I'm recording this and letting it roll, I'm actually in the pen with them, and I'm walking around the pen. So what we do, because we know they have a need for exercise that they probably are not going to take care of on their own, not so much out of laziness, but just so much out of chicken logic says, why walk across the barn for food if I have it right here beside me? So we do make a point to help them get some exercise. So really about every couple hours throughout the daytime hours, somebody of our family comes into the building and exercises the birds. And we say that we ask them to walk around. So basically, we exert minimal, gentle pressure, walking a loop around the barn, asking the birds to get up and walk around. And one of the reasons we want to do this is to make sure that their legs stay really strong, because they grow so fast that if they are allowed to just sit and never move around, their leg strength is not going to develop. So, it's like we need them doing kind of miniature weight-bearing, weightlifting exercise throughout the day, every day, in order to stay strong in their legs. That way, when they get out to being 4 weeks old and 5 weeks old, we are hopefully not going to have problems with their legs being too weak to hold them up. But that takes some effort. So if we're raising them in a confined system like we are, that's why we ask them to exercise, okay? And sometimes I even, just put my hand down there. And so it also gives us an opportunity to see, if our birds are showing indicators of health. Because as we're walking around, we're seeing all the birds as individuals, and we're also taking note, do the birds move away when there's a little bit of pressure exerted on them? And they should move away. If we see birds that won't stand up and birds that absolutely refuse to move away, that tells us that that bird either is struggling to move and has mobility issues, or maybe that bird isn't feeling well. So this bird is obviously healthy. It's just you know, they're not afraid of us. We don't give them any reason to be afraid of us. So a lot of the times the birds will just stand and look at us like, are you serious? You know? So anyway, but that's, you know, that's what it comes down to with these meat chickens. We are making chicken with Cornish Rock Cross meat chickens. They are selectively bred to grow rapidly, and they grow rapidly to start with, and then they grow even more rapidly as we get to like 4 weeks, 5 weeks old. And we only grow them out to 5 or 6 weeks old, and then actually they're ready to go be processed into poultry. And our expectation out of that is to end up with, like if we get whole chickens, to end up with whole chickens that can go into the freezer for somebody to use at their dinner table. We end up with whole chickens that are about 4.5 pounds, okay? That's what we end up with after about a 5-week production schedule. And a lot of folks have a tendency to think that when you raise meat chickens, hey y'all, you want to raise them longer and end up with bigger chickens in the freezer. The bigger the better. I'm gonna disagree with that. Not necessarily true. We work with a lot of clients that enjoy chicken that we raise here, and consistent feedback from them is that 4 pound, 4.5 pound size in the whole chickens is the best point of finish, and they taste the best. And they get out longer than that, and you sometimes have chicken that is a little drier, possibly a little tougher. So they really like, we find that clients really like about the 4 pound whole chickens. And we know that with Cornish Rock Cross meat chickens, if you aim to make sure that they eat about 10 pounds of a 22% start to finish protein, 22% protein start to finish chicken feed, you can finish them in 35 to 42 days for poultry that is wholesome and delicious and that is excellent. So that's basically how we do it. But just wanted to, as I said, get caught up where we're kind of recording and uploading the chickens on the same day, giving you a real-time sense, if you're following along day to day with us, giving you a real-time sense of their growth, their progress, of our challenges, of what we're facing. And also wanted to share with y'all that kind of human side of the farmer's story in a chicken operation that's different than what we hear about in the media. You know, there are a lot of small family-run chicken operations throughout the world, you know, but the only ones that make the news are the big commercial, vertically integrated, corporate-run chicken operations. And a lot of times when those make the news is bad news. So it reflects poorly on poultry production, even in instances where bad things aren't going on. So we strive to give our chickens excellent quality of life. There is sometimes flock mortality. I can tell you that we're at 432 chickens. We had these chickens shipped here on June 12th, 2024. That was actually their hatch day. And there was 434 of them moved in. We lost one on day 6, and we lost one the morning of day 15 this morning. So we are at 432. But 15 days in, 2 weeks in, 2 birds lost to mortality out of 434 is not a bad statistic. I know it sounds awful. You must understand that it's very discouraging to producers even to have mortality in a few birds. But out of 434 to lose 2 weeks in really is not terrible. So we're going to continue to use our tried and true system that we've developed to continue to give our birds excellent quality of life. So what's going down here the next few days with them? We're going to add bedding again tonight. We've added bedding about 3 times in the last 15 days. They started production where those heat lamps are suspended and we've raised them. But the birds started production just in that half of the building, actually. And so we saw them filling that space, and we expanded the space so they have the entire barn. So they'll have this space for the rest of production out to 40, they're going to 41 days old. That's when they'll go to the processor. So bedding will go down again tonight, probably about 4 bales of bedding. And as I said, we are getting more of these feeders and waters. They'll be coming in, and feed consumption wise, we have about, oh gosh, I think we have 65 bags of feed left. So that means we've fed 15 bags here on day 15. So by the end of day 15, they will have consumed about 15 bags of feed, 15 50-pound bags of feed, and we have 65 50-pound bags of feed left for the duration of production. So this was a little bit longer video. We're going to try to get back to something like maybe the 10 to 12 minute videos for the most part. There's one preening. So they do normal chicken things, but you know, again, I want to emphasize they're really not lazy birds. They get accused of being lazy a lot of the time, but they rest a lot, and that's why they get accused of being lazy. They rest a lot because they're growing so quickly. I mean, you gotta think, 15 days ago, they fit inside an egg, okay? So they've grown so much in 2 weeks, and it's unbelievable how much more they're gonna grow in the next 4 weeks, okay? And then that's when they're gonna go to processing. So at any rate, we all in good fun, jokingly, do get called and do kind of enjoy the nickname Chicken Mafia of Southeast Ohio. And we admit that it's probably a special kind of crazy, but we also have a passion for producing wholesome and delicious poultry. And we want y'all to know that this is how it's done. Real good chicken comes from real chickens raised with good management practices.